It was one of those perfect suburban mornings. The lawns looked like green carpets. Sprinklers whispered across trimmed grass. The sun hit the rooftops just right, and the air smelled of fresh, cut hedges and pancakes. At house number 248, Jake Miller stood by the window waiting. It was his daughter's graduation day. He'd saved up for a big lunch, sushi platters, drinks, desserts. A full spread for the family. The total, $512.38. Worth every penny, he thought. A white car pulled up. The delivery. Jake smiled. But across the street another pair of eyes watched the same car. Karen HOA President. Self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood. She adjusted her sunglasses, squinted, and saw the driver carrying 2 large paper bags labeled Chef's Table Catering. Her lips curled. Finally. About time my order arrived, she said. Even though she hadn't ordered anything. She grabbed her phone, threw on her robe, and strutted down her driveway with the confidence of a woman who thought the street belonged to her. The driver placed the bags neatly on Jake's porch and started walking back to his car. "Excuse me," she called out, waving dramatically. "That's mine." The driver blinked. This says Jake Miller, house 1248. Karen smiled wide. "Yes, that's me, he's my husband. Go on, it's fine." Before the driver could reply, she scooped up both bags and turned around. "Thank you, sweetie. Great service." The driver froze, confused, then shrugged and marked the delivery as complete. A minute later, Jake opened his door. The porch was empty. No food, no driver. Just a faint smell of soy sauce in the air. He looked left, and there she was. Karen's silver SUV parked across the street. Inside her open garage, he saw her teenage son laughing, pulling sushi trays out of the bag. Jake's jaw tightened. He walked over calmly. "Karen, did you take a delivery from my porch?" She turned, chopsticks in hand. The driver dropped it at the wrong house. "Easy mistake." Jakey's voice was steady. "You opened it." Karen shrugged. "Well, I couldn't just let it sit there and spoil. I'll return it when we're done." Jake stared at the half-eaten tray. "That's $500 worth of catering, Karen." "Then maybe you shouldn't leave expensive things lying around," she said. "It's negligence." Jake couldn't believe it. He took a deep breath, turned, and walked back home. But his phone was recording the entire exchange. That night, he filed a report with the restaurant. They confirmed the total. For $512.38. The manager told him, "That's not petty theft, sir. That's grand larceny." Jake looked at the recording again. Karen's smug grin, her son eating his food, the calm arrogance. He whispered, "Not this time." By noon the next day, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Someone had seen a police cruiser drive by twice. Someone else had seen Jake talking to an officer near his driveway. Karen stood in her garden pretending to trim flowers, but her eyes kept flicking toward Jake's house. She'd heard the rumors too. At 2 p.m., a black and white police car rolled onto the street and stopped right in front of her driveway. Officer Martinez stepped out, calm and polite. Behind him, Officer Lane followed with a notepad. Jake stood quietly beside them, phone in hand. "Afternoon, Mom," Martinez began. "We received a report about a missing food delivery that might have been accidentally taken from this address." Karen laughed. "Oh, please. This is ridiculous. The driver left it at my door. I even told him it was the wrong house." Officer Lane glanced at his notes. "You told the delivery driver it was your order, correct?" Karen's face stiffened. "I might have said something like that, but I didn't steal anything." She took it, opened it, and ate it. "I've got it on video." Karen crossed her arms. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Jake. It's just food. I was going to pay you back." Officer Martinez's tone hardened. "Ma'am, the order total is over $500. That's classified as grand larceny in this state." Karen blinked. "Over sushi." "No, Mom," he said flatly. "Over sushi." Neighbors started gathering outside. Phones came out. Murmurs spread. "Is Karen getting arrested?" Someone whispered. "About time," another said. Karen's cheeks turned red. "You people have nothing better to do." The Officer Lane gestured to the garage. "Can we take a look at the items?" Karen tried to block the way. "I threw it out. It's gone." Jake lifted his phone. "Funny, because this video was taken yesterday. Inside your garage." The officer glanced at the screen, then nodded. "Enough." "Ma'am," Martinez said. You're under investigation for theft exceeding $500. We'll need you to come with us for questioning. Karen's voice shot up. Excuse me, you can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. Officer Lane sighed. Mom, this isn't an HOA matter. It's a criminal case. Karen's voice cracked. You're making a mistake. Martinez stepped forward. Turn around, please. The sound of metal cuffs echoed through the quiet street. Phones recorded. Neighbors stared. Karen's son stood frozen on the porch. Jake just stood there still, watching as she was led toward the cruiser. The door slammed shut. Silence fell. The next morning, the internet had already found her. A neighbor's TikTok of the arrest had gone viral. 2 million views. Caption, HO Karen arrested for stealing 500 sushi delivery. Comment after comment poured in. She really said, I'll return it when we're done. Caramel with soy sauce. Etcha queen dethroned. Inside the police station, Karen paced the holding cell, shouting, I demand to speak to the chief. Do you know who I am? Officer Martinez, leaning by the counter, said calmly, Yes, Mom. You're the woman who stole, warned 512 worth of sushi. I was a misunderstanding, she yelled. He replied, then explain it to the judge. 2 days later, her HOA vice president called an emergency meeting. The board voted to suspend her position indefinitely. Jake didn't say much. He just went on with his life. The restaurant refunded him, and even sent a complimentary order for his daughter's party. That weekend, the neighborhood gathered for the graduation barbecue. Kids ran across the lawns. Laughter filled the air. Jake stood by the grill, flipping burgers, while neighbors came up one by one to thank him. Finally, someone stood up to her. She had it coming. You handled it with class, man. He smiled humbly. Just glad it's over. But it wasn't over for Karen. The next few days rolled in quietly. But something about the neighborhood had changed. The same lawns, the same trimmed hedges, the same quiet cull. The sack that used to echo with Karen's commands now carried whispers. Whispers about her. Neighbors, who once smiled politely, now crossed the street to avoid her. Parents stopped waving when she drove by. And every morning, when she walked to collect her mail, she could feel the weight of every window watching her. Karen had lived for that attention once. Now it suffocated her. By Monday, the CHO board had called an emergency meeting. Karen had led dozens of them before. But this time, her name wasn't beside president. It was beside complaint. She arrived in a stiff blazer, pretending confidence. But when she stepped into the community center, the air felt colder. Rows of folding chairs filled with neighbors who once obeyed her. They didn't greet her. They didn't smile. They just waited. Jake was there too, calm, steady. The vice president cleared her throat. Today's agenda includes allegations regarding misuse of HOA authority, inappropriate behavior, and an ongoing police report involving theft. Karen laughed nervously. Oh, come on, you're not seriously. Karen, please. The vice president said. You'll have a chance to speak. Jake stood, playing the short video. Karen's voice filled the room again. Sweet, smug, undeniable. Oh, that's my husband. He must have used his name for the order. It's our sweetie. Every face turned toward her. Silence. That was taken out of context. She shouted. I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. You didn't enforce order, Karen. The vice president replied. You enforced fear. Votes were raised. And in less than 5 minutes, the woman who'd ruled the neighborhood for years was officially removed as HOA president. When she walked out of that room, the door creaked behind her. Slow, heavy final. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves swirled across the sidewalk like whispers chasing her. For the first time in years, Karen Wilcox wasn't feared. She was pitied. That night, her Facebook group went silent. No new posts, no warnings, no pastel reminders about lawn decor. The queen of the HOA had fallen, and the street had never felt freer. Weeks later, the same quiet cull, Sack saw her again, standing by the roadside in an orange vest, picking up litter under the same sun that once shone over her perfect garden. A slow, poetic kind of justice. Some neighbors drove by. A few honked, others whispered, no one laughed. It wasn't funny anymore. It was sad. Jake watched quietly from across the street. Not with spite. Not with joy. Just a quiet understanding. He didn't record her. He didn't post about it. He simply turned off his hose and went back inside. That evening, his daughter walked in holding her college acceptance letter. Her eyes glowed. I got in. Jake smiled proudly. That's amazing. You deserve it. She hugged him. The way you handled everything. That's what real strength looks like. Jake looked out the window again. The street was quiet now. Peaceful. Balanced. He nodded slowly. Sometimes, doing the right thing isn't about fighting. It's about letting truth do the talking. And across the way, Karen stood still for a moment, broom in hand, staring at the house she'd once mocked. For a second, something changed in her face. A flicker of realization. Maybe even regret. When she turned to leave, she paused by the street sign that read Maplewood Drive, and whispered something under her breath that no one heard. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe it was a promise to change. Or maybe it was just the sound of pride finally fading. That weekend, the neighborhood came alive again. A block party to celebrate Jake's daughter's graduation. Balloons swayed, music played, laughter echoed. Jake stood by the grill, flipping burgers, greeting neighbors who now looked at him with newfound respect. He wasn't the quiet guy across the street anymore. He was the man who'd stood up for what was right, and did it without losing his calm. Someone raised a toast. To honest people, they said, smiling. To neighbors who make this place better. Moving forward. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops, gold light washed over the Cull, Deet Sack. Kids chased bubbles. Parents chatted, and somewhere, just beyond the laughter, a car door closed quietly. Karen's car. She'd come to return something, a small white envelope. No words, no confrontation. Just a simple note tucked under Jake's doormat. When he found it later night, it read only 3 words. You were right. No signature. No excuses. Just honesty, the kind she'd fought against for so long. Jake folded the note, placed it in a drawer, and smiled to himself. Because sometimes karma isn't cruel. Sometimes, it's kind, once the lesson lands. And that street, once ruled by noise, gossip, and fear, now lived in peace again. The lawns still looked like green carpets. The air still smelled of pancakes and fresh, cut grass. But this time, the neighborhood had learned something deeper. That respect isn't about titles. That truth doesn't need permission, and that every action, good or bad, finds its way back home, because sometimes justice doesn't whisper. It speaks, loud and clear. It wears a badge. And sometimes, it shows up right on your doorstep, to return what's truly yours.